Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today we are on F124 and I will be giving my impressions and just a short review on what I think of the game so far. I haven't bought the full game. This is the 5-hour free trial, and I basically did about 2.5 hours of running in the game. Just a bunch of 5 lappers at different tracks just to feel what the game is like so I can give my feedback and whether I think it's good or not. So let's dive right in. Do I think it is worth it to buy this game at this point in time? And the answer is no. Codemasters and EA have really not released a very good product in F124, and the game is just very incomplete. The game just feels like it's halfway through testing phase, or should be halfway through testing phase, and they have released it and just expect their customers to buy it without thinking. And unfortunately, currently in the community, that is the case. People are just buying the game because, well, there's a new game out, so we should buy it. Or my friends have all bought the new game and now I'm the only one stuck on F123, so I'm also going to buy F124. And unfortunately, this sends the message to EA and to Codemasters that we don't care if you give us a bad game, we're just going to buy it anyway. And for that reason alone, I am not buying this game yet, at least until they give us a handling update or some kind of patch which fixes the issues that I'm going to address in this video. Because yeah, I think the community should put some pressure on them and say, listen, we are not going to be okay with a mediocre game. We pay a lot of money each year for you to release a new game, and we expect good improvements on the previous game, not just a copy paste, and definitely not a downgrade, because that's what I feel F124 is at the moment. It's a significant downgrade from F123. Does this mean I won't buy the game at all? No, I probably will buy it, but as I said, I'm not going to buy it now because that just sends the wrong message. And I really feel passionate about the F1 games, and I do feel that we as a community should be not just buying the first thing that they put out on the shelf, but putting pressure on them to say, listen, you guys have a lot of money, you have a lot of resources, we expect you to develop a good game. So the first thing I want to address is the handling. Now, a lot has been said about this, and you can find a lot of different reviews online and on YouTube, but the main thing I feel that is wrong with this game is just how inconsistent the handling is. It just feels, first of all, very arcadey, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. And second of all, very inconsistent. It doesn't feel like the car reacts to the steering as you would expect it to, and that makes it very difficult to be consistent. It makes it difficult to know what to expect from the car. And what I've found is, in high-speed corners, the car is very aggressive in the initial turn in, but then as you get to like the apex, halfway through the corner, you start feeling this massive understeer, and the faster you go, the more understeer you feel. And the complete opposite is true in low speed corners, and as soon as you get to a hairpin or some kind of low speed corner in second or third gear, the car just wants to over rotate so much, and you've got to be very, very careful with your steering inputs, your throttle inputs, which causes you to obviously lose a lot of time. And it just feels very like a mobile game. If you've ever played any mobile racing game, if you're driving fast, it's really difficult to make corners or to turn quickly, which should not be true in an F1 sense because of all the downforce. You know, these cars at high speeds, they corner pretty well. And then at low speed, the car just wants to over rotate, and yeah, it just feels like a mobile game. That's the best way I can describe it. So that's the turning. In terms of acceleration, it is very difficult to lose the car under acceleration, especially in a straight line. Like, you can just floor the throttle and the car will go. I did find that you lose a bit of time doing that, so there is wheel spin that does cost you time. But yeah, the fact that you can't just spin, it obviously reduces the skill gap, because people will just be abusing the throttle, and even though they lose a bit of time, they aren't really punished for not being smooth with their inputs. In terms of the brakes, I felt like maybe it's just something we need to get used to on the new game, but I was locking up extremely easily, and some corners it was just impossible to avoid locking up. And because if you give less brakes, you're not braking enough to make the corner, but as soon as you give a bit more brakes, then you lock up, which I feel like it's just slightly too sensitive maybe. again, maybe it's just something we need to get used to. I only spent about an hour and a half or 2 hours on track, so yeah, I can't really say whether it's a fault or not, but at least from what I felt like, it just felt a bit too sensitive. In terms of the ERS, this one is tricky because I think it has potential, but once again, just like with the brakes, I just feel like it's too sensitive. When you enable the overtake button, you go from 100% to like 20% in one straight. So you can deplete your whole battery very quickly, but then if you turn it to none, you regenerate your whole battery again within a single sector basically. So what's going to end up happening is, at the moment, it creates good racing because I don't think a lot of people know yet how to use the ERS wisely. But as people get used to the game, all this is going to allow is for people to spam the overtake button down the straights, and then in the corners where you can't really overtake, you just set it to none and you regenerate all your battery back. So I think the ERS has potential, as I said, but it definitely needs to be reworked. You should be able to save, if you're driving on medium, you should be able to save maybe 10% per lap. And if you put your ERS onto none, you should be able to save 20, maybe 25% per lap. So you should not be able to save a whole battery within a single sector of a lap, because that just means you're going to be able to spam the ERS so much more. And again, using the overtake button, it should drain quickly, yes, but not as quickly as is currently the case. So yeah, I just think the ERS has potential, but they need to make it less sensitive. And yes, the guys on controller, I have heard that the guys on controller are complaining because it's very difficult to change your ERS levels, like if you're in corners or in tracks like Monaco or Saudi Arabia, where there's a lot of walls, a lot of corners. It might be difficult for you to change your ERS modes during a lap. But again, that's an advantage that I feel wheel users should have, because obviously a wheel, you've spent a lot more money to get a wheel. And most wheel users are a bit more, how can I say, I wouldn't say professional, but they usually spend a bit more time and a bit more money to be able to play racing games. And I feel like the small advantage of being able to change your ERS modes mid-lap is kind of expected, right? So yeah, that's the ERS. In terms of the curbs, I feel like the curbs are just too easy. You can just drive over most curbs on most tracks. The curbs don't really punish you as they do in real life. You don't really feel the effect of having to avoid certain curbs. Obviously in real life there are curbs that you can take, but there are also curbs that you avoid, and I feel like in this game the curbs just don't punish you as they would in real life. And then next up, in terms of the overall feeling of the game, I feel like for you to be fast at this stage, you really have to abuse the physics and drive in a very unnatural way. If you're just throwing the car into corners and kind of having that initial pointy reaction, then you're going to be a lot faster, but it's not a natural way to drive a car, and it's not the way the real F1 drivers drive their cars if you look at their onboard cameras. In real life, you have to be very smooth with your inputs, you have to be very smooth with how you steer the car, your throttle, your brakes, and I feel like if you do that on this game, it looks a lot better, but you are a lot slower over a lap. You're probably 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap slower if you are not abusing the physics, which I don't feel is good. I mean, if you have to drive in an unnatural way, or if you have to drive in a very strange way just to extract lap time, then I don't feel that like the game is at a very good place. The last thing I want to mention about the handling is the handling feels a lot different on different tracks. So for example, in my experience at least, tracks like Saudi Arabia, Britain, Hungary, they really didn't feel good. The handling was very inconsistent, all over the place, super difficult to predict what the car's going to do. And other tracks like Belgium, for example, really actually felt not that bad. I won't say good, but the effects of the handling wasn't that exaggerated, I would say. So yeah, in terms of the game in general, I know it's been a lot of negatives so far, but the game does have positives, and I do feel like the game has a lot of potential to be good. So one of the positives I will say is the ERS. The fact that you can manage your ERS more precisely and kind of be more strategic with when you want to deploy ERS, when you want to save ERS is a good thing. I do think, as I said earlier, they just need to tweak the sensitivity of it. Another thing is a tire wear. I do feel like you having to be smooth, you having to be kind of looking after your tires is good for the overall racing experience. And I think races will be a lot more tactical. You can't just send it every lap. You've got to be really mindful of how you handle the car and how you manage your tires throughout a stint, which I think obviously is very good, and it's going to increase the skill gap, which is what we want. We want people who are good at racing their car and managing their car to be able to, get those rewards from being smooth with the inputs. And then another thing that I think is a big positive is the lobbies just felt a lot more stable. I didn't experience as many people being disconnected or lagging around or, struggling to join the session. So in terms of the online stability, I think the game has taken a step forward. And I think that's basically it. Obviously, I haven't done any offline modes. I haven't done any career modes, anything. This was just initial impression of what I think the game is like. But yeah, in short, I will not be buying the game anytime soon unless they bring out a patch to fix the handling or a patch to just update the game in general. Because as I said, I do feel this game has a lot of potential to be one of the best games that they have brought out recently. But yeah, if a racing game's handling is not good, I mean, the handling is a pretty big part of a racing game, then the game in general, I feel like, will be disappointing. So yeah, not all bad, but at least for now, it just feels like a very incomplete product. Cool guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and let me know in the comments below what you think of F1 24 so far. Until next time, goodbye.